is not clicking. Something is not right. And ultimately, when you evaluate the talent on this team, the way that they were losing games after having leads, it felt like there was no path forward with this regime. You and I said this the entirety of the Dabes era, Evan. Basically, if he wins, he'll keep his job. If he doesn't, he's going to lose his job. And after a 2-8 start and the second, at least in the last 4 games, of losing games that you should have won, you had no other choice. You're right. It was inevitable. And part of this is on the players, obviously. A lot of it is on the coaches, obviously. But ultimately, you are judged by the bottom line, and the bottom line for Dabes was not good enough.
The Giants made a good decision today because in the past I've looked at firing coaches in the middle of a season, an NFL season, and wondered, what's the point? What are you getting out of it? And this case, to me, felt very different, especially with the way they lost yesterday, especially with the way he sounded yesterday.
Yeah, he was defeated.
He sounded incredibly defeated. Like, I'm listening to that press conference as I was driving to another lost cause, Knicks Nets on a Sunday night.
Why?
That's a great question. And I'm listening to Brian Daboll talk, and that was a dead man walking. That was a guy who had no answers. And you look at the injury to Jackson Dart, and you look at, well, what could change over the final 7 games that would keep his job? And the answer was nothing. So as I watched a horrible basketball game last night, and as I put myself to sleep last night, I said, why would you keep him? What would be the purpose of continuing through this charade? And I couldn't come up with a good answer. So I was prepared to sit here with you at 2 o'clock and say, look, Tiki, it's not all Brian Daboll's fault, but what are we doing here? Stop the charade, put him out of his misery, give the fans their little bone, give Mike Kafka an opportunity, and just move the hell on. And so in an era in which we never commend the Giants for anything, whoever made this decision, whether it was John Mara, Joe Schoen, other owners, whatever combo made the decision, I think they made the right decision because having this man continue to coach the team wouldn't have made any sense for the remainder of the season.
Also, I mean, it's yet to be seen whether it makes any difference as well. Mike Kafka is going to be the interim head coach. I have a question whether or not he's still going to call plays, given how we know that when a new head coach also has play calling duties, this is not Sean Payton, this is not Andy Reid, this is not someone who's been in this process for a long time and understands the machinations of doing it and also managing a game. It can be overwhelming.
Sure. We saw it last year with the Jets.
We saw it with Jeff Oldenburg last year, and it was an utter disaster with a inexperienced interim head coach trying to also be defensive coordinator, in this case being offensive coordinator. But that is where it is. I know a lot of people are going to call and ask, well, why isn't Shane Bowen gone as well? Well, the reason is because who the hell are you replacing Shane Bowen with? And so finding a defensive coordinator, even if it's just someone on the staff, it doesn't make sense because nobody has been in that capacity before. Could you do it just to do it and get your pound of flesh? Sure, but that's ultimately neither here nor there. The big issue was, I think Brian Daboll had created a culture back in 2022 where you had to earn your right to be on the field. You had to earn his trust. Otherwise, you didn't play or they went and found somebody else. And over the last few years, it felt like that slipped. It felt like when effort or desire wasn't there, guys still played. And guys still got opportunities, and it's not all his fault because, let's face it, the talent sucks on this team after you get past level 1, meaning the starters. After that, it gets bad, and they get gassed defensively, and there's this inconsistency on offense, especially in the receiver room. So, again, this is not all Dabes' fault. And from a personal standpoint, I hate this for Dabes because I liked him. I had a really good relationship with him, and I wanted to believe that he was the right coach for this team. Unfortunately, as we have identified, if you don't win and your resume becomes your win-loss record, you ultimately have to pay the piper, and that's what happened after this week 10 loss.
It's never personal. Whether it's Joe Torre or it's Tom Coughlin or it's Joe Girardi or it's Buck Showalter or it's even Joe Judge or it's Pat Shurmur, it's not that they're bad guys. It's that this is a business where you need to perform.
Right.
and they didn't perform. And this team didn't perform. And you're right, it's not all on Brian Daboll, but when you have the kind of collapses that this team has put together over the course of this season, you can't fire everybody. Now, they may try at the end of the season to fire everybody.
Oh, trust me, there's going to be a lot of turnover
on
this team. From a coaching staff, but also a player standpoint. At least there better be.
Amen.
They can't run it back with some of these guys who just can't play this game.
1,000%. Now, here's a statement from the New York Football Giants, because they've just released it in the last 5 minutes, making this official. It has just been reported over the last few hours, the likes of Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter. Here's an official statement from the New York Giants. The New York Giants announced today that head coach Brian Daboll has been relieved of his duties. Assistant head coach, offensive coordinator Mike Kafka will serve as interim head coach. Quote, "We spoke this morning about the direction of our franchise on the field, and we have decided that at this time, it is in our best interest to make a change at the head coaching position," President John Mara and Chairman Steve Tisch said in a joint statement. "The past few seasons have been nothing short of disappointing, and we have not met our expectations for this franchise. We understand the frustrations of our fans, and we will work to deliver a significantly improved product. We appreciate Coach Daboll for his contributions to our organization. We wish the Daboll family all the best in the future." Mm-hmm. What I understand is
he's going to go someplace else and be great and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, as an OC, probably.
I'm just saying that because that's typical for whoever leaves the New York Giants.
That is true.
This is what it is.
And you know what? Wherever he goes as OC and he's successful, so be it.
Right.
His job here was to be head coach. I don't think John Mara and Steve Tisch are going to meet the media. I don't think Joe Schoen is going to meet the media till bye week. So we're not going to hear about the whys. I mean, the whys are the losses.
The whys are obvious. We get this. I mean, but the other big issue here is the one player who is most important to this team now and going forward, and that's Jackson Dart.
Well, do you think they fired him because of the Jackson Dart injury?
I don't think they fired him because of the Jackson Dart injury, but I do think, and we kind of alluded to this at points over the last couple of weeks, that Jackson Dart feels like whoever is coaching him is going to be successful coaching him. And because it's not necessarily about the coach, it's about him as a player. There are certain guys, and this is regardless of position, but it's particularly obvious when it's at quarterback. There's certain players that are going to thrive no matter what system they're in. Baker Mayfield is one. Matt Stafford is another. Think about what he did when he was in Detroit, and now it's completely different what he's doing out in Sean McVay's system with the Raiders. He's going to thrive. And I think Jackson Dart has that mentality because he's such a gamer. As soon as he figures out how to take contact and not get, turn the ball over by getting hit. By the way, that was Wan'Dale Robinson's fault. And we'll get to it at some point when we start breaking down some of the plays in this game. But ultimately, I think Jackson Dart being coach proof, if that makes sense, gave license to not have to rely on Dave's being his shepherd for the next year or whatever future determination you had.
You're right. And I think most Giant fans who were worried about that over the last few weeks moved away from you can't fire Brian Daboll because of Jackson Dart.
Right.
But I read this statement from the New York Giants, and I have a very important follow-up question. And this follow-up question I think is going to be echoed by Giant fans all over the place. And that is, they say the past few seasons have been nothing short of disappointing, and we have not met expectations for this franchise. We understand the frustrations of our fans, and we will work to deliver a significantly improved product. Great sentence. We all agree with that.
Right.
The follow-up question is, how is the general manager still employed? Now, if the answer is we may do that at the end of the year, kind of like what the Jets did. They fired the head coach and then weeks later fired the general manager. Okay. But I think right now the Giant fan sees this and says, hey, we agree with the decision to remove Brian Daboll. What about Joe Schoen? Because all of those disappointments that this statement talks about and all the disappointments we've talked about also involve,
of course,
Joe Schoen, who picked the players.
Right. It's the players, it's the guys that he kept, the ones that he didn't. And all of those decisions are, I don't want to say they're completely symbiotic, but they're kind of related. And, when Dave's is suffering through a 3-14 season because every backup is barely a rosterable player. Is that on Dabes or is that on the general manager? And you started to see a little bit of that this year when the secondary gets beat up and guys become available. Is that on Shane Bowen or is that on Joe Schoen? Joe Schoen shouldn't escape scrutiny. He keeps his job, and it is what it is, and you have to support him and push him forward because there's an entire staff that exists around Joe Schoen that you can't just pull him out and then someone else just steps into that role. And so I get why you keep it, even though he also deserves a similar amount of scrutiny as Brian Daboll got.
Well, if you want to tell me, and no one's saying anything, so I can just surmise, if you want to tell me, though, hey, we're still evaluating the general manager, fine. But if he ends up surviving all of this, and let's say the Giants don't win another game, and they finish the year 2-15,
yeah, well,
how does he survive that?
It's an easy reason why.
Why?
Because if you don't put support behind the man that is going to lead the coaching search, if you are a coach, why would you come here? You know what I mean?
What do you mean by that? So
Joe Schoen's going to hire you, and the Giants say, you know what? Joe Schoen's going to hire you, but we're going to fire him in a month or 2 months. What coach is going to say, "Oh yeah, I want to do that"? Yeah, I now as head coach have to work with a new general manager. It doesn't logistically make sense to fire your GM if he's going to hire the new head coach.
Well, and he is, because here's more on that statement. So there's more from the Giants statement that was released in the last 5 minutes. Joe Schoen remains in his position as general manager and will lead the search for a new head coach. We feel like Joe has assembled a good young nucleus of talent, and we look forward to its development, said Mara. Unfortunately, the results over the past 3 years have not been what any of us wanted. We take full responsibility for those results and look forward to the kind of success our fans expect. This is from Tish. These are difficult decisions, and John and I do not take them lightly. But we feel like this is the right thing to do at this time and will allow us to move forward. So that is them saying he is the general manager.
Of course he is.
Nothing can change over these final 7 weeks, and I would just disagree with that. Like, is that really the healthy way you want to continue? Plus, as you've even said many times, he's responsible.
Of course he is.
For a lot of the mistakes.
But ultimately, the talent on this team is good enough to win games. I've said this multiple times. This isn't like the last few years where it was this is less than professional what we're seeing on the field. The talent is there. I think the closest of the games shows you that. It's hard to win in the NFL, but it's moments and it's situations and it's game management, it's decisions that determine who wins or loses football games, and the Giants haven't been good enough in that regard. But they do have a talented team. We know this. Brian Burns is a good player. Dexter Lawrence is a good player. Kayvon Thibodeau, even though he's banged up, and I'm not sure how he's playing with that jacked up arm that he has, or maybe it's something else. He's a good player. Abdul Carter's young. He's a rookie, and he got manhandled this past weekend, but he's going to be a good player. Same thing with Jackson Dart and his offensive line, Andrew Thomas, and some of those other pieces up there. Schlottman actually played okay. I feel like this team has talent, and they can win these games, but they're losing them, and somebody has to take the blame. Somebody has to be the fall guy, and unfortunately, the head coach is often that player.
He usually is. He usually is, and it's funny, they just played the Chicago Bears, and I mentioned this on Friday, how the Bears followed a similar line, where they hired a general manager. That general manager, Ryan Poles, hired a head coach, Matt Eberflus. That general manager then fired the head coach, kept his job, hired a new head coach in Ben Johnson, who he had a history with.
And they're 6-3.
And they're 6-3. And I don't know how I would have felt in Chicago. I'm not sure. I just know how I feel now as an IFO. I wouldn't do it this way. Because I get your point that they have enough talent. They should have won a few of these games, because you're right. I mean, they had 3 games this year in which they had a 90% chance of winning in the final few minutes. Like, they should have won those games. I can't even argue that.
Right.
So with better coaching, should they be better than 2-8? Yes, I agree with you. But I also look at the roster and say, he's been here for 4 years. It's like a president. You get your full term.
Yeah.
Are they really that much better off than they were 4 years earlier? And I don't feel strongly enough. So, like, I would not reelect this general manager if he ran on, this is what I've done. Yeah. These are the results. I'd have a tough time doing that. And the other thing I wonder about this, is when Joe Schoen leads the search, is it almost less appealing? Because people looking at the job are going to say, I don't know how safe you are. They just gave you 4 years. You guys have won nothing.
Well,
Do I want this job where you're not even safe?
I think a lot of that's going to depend on which head coach we're talking about. Who's going to be the next head coach? Is it going to be a young, inexperienced head coach, or is it going to be a veteran who knows how the process works in the front office? And if it's that latter person, they're going to say, I don't really care. Joe Schoen, give me good players. If not, you get fired, guess what? I'll be fine because I know this process. And so I think there's nuance here. So much of this head coaching search is going to be about not repeating the mistakes of the immediate. Really, it's not even immediate. It's long-term past, the post-Tom Coughlin past, and creating something that is not only productive but consistent and stable. It's been a long time since the Giants have had that. Long time. They had two really, and Fossil was quasi-stable because he was here for a while, but it's 7 years to be exact. But it always felt like it was turmoil. Whereas Tom Coughlin, it was stable. You won consistently. You won championships. The Giants need to go back to that model.
No, and it's the definition of unstable because since the end of the Tom Coughlin era, you're talking about Tom Coughlin, Ben McAdoo, Steve Spagnuolo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, Brian Daboll, and coming up on Sunday, Mike Kafka. That's 7 head coaches in basically a decade. That is the definition of unstable. We'll get to your calls next. A big day in Giantland. Brian Daboll is gone, and Joe Schoen is safe, officially safe. 8